In this video, we will discuss the tragedy that was the disaster of the Columbia Space Shuttle. We will first give background information, then state the problem that caused the disaster. In addition, we will also analyze the ethical issues this case had, and we will propose recommendations that could have potentially prevented the disaster.
Construction of the Columbia began in 1975 and was finished in 1979. The Columbia was also one of the first original four orbiters launched by NASA. Its first launch was in 1981. During its 22 years of service, it completed 27 missions. It also underwent various upgrades through its life, which included a glass cockpit and second-generation main engines. However, in 2003, more than 44% of its tiles and 41% of the 44-wing leading-edge reinforced carbon panels were still original equipment. On January 16, 2003, the Columbia launched to complete its mission STS-107 on February 1, 2003. The Columbia disintegrated upon re-entry. As a result, all 7 astronauts were killed. The disaster was caused by the damage sustained by one of the Columbia's wings. The damage was caused by a foam used to insulate the external tank in order to keep the oxygen and hydrogen in liquid state and keep the external temperature high enough so that the ice would not form on the surface. Foam loss occurred in more than 80% of the missions in which imagery could determine the foam loss. In this mission in particular, a piece of foam peeled off during the launch, causing damage to one of the wings. As a result, upon re-entry, the heating and dynamic pressures caused the Columbia to disintegrate because the ship could not handle the heating or dynamic pressure with the damaged wing.
We can clearly see there are several ethical issues involved in this case. The ethical issues include public safety and welfare, data integrity and representation, and a principled and informed consent. First, public safety was put at risk when the Columbia exploded. The debris potentially could have caused damage to property and put people's lives in danger. The engineers were aware of the foam loss in every mission, yet chose to take their chances and proceed with the mission. The lives of the astronauts were put in danger despite them knowing the possible risks indicated by the data they had. Rodney Rocha, chief engineer in the Shuttle Structural Engineering Division, along with 2 other engineers, addressed the problem and asked for access to American spy satellites in order to assess the potential damage done to the wing. This was denied by the manager of the Shuttle Engineering Office, Paul Schack. Schack responded to Rocha by saying, "I'm not going to be a chicken little about this." Later, a team from Boeing ran a mathematical analysis and concluded the flight was safe. Rocha decided to agree with the calculations. Here we see how Rocha and Schack have informed consent about the possible problem. Schack decided to ignore Rocha, and Rocha failed to keep pursuing his suspicion about the potential damage done to the wing. This disaster could have been avoided if all the ethical issues were solved. To solve these issues, we have several recommendations. First of all, NASA should have replaced all the original equipment or at least replaced any equipment that was not in optimal condition after thorough examination prior to mission STS-107, since Columbia had already endured 22 years of service along with its 27 missions. NASA should have also required the astronauts to inspect the Columbia before re-entry. This would have detected any potential problems that could have been corrected. In addition, NASA should have corrected the problem of the foam loss before launch, and if needed, pushed back the launch date. Also, NASA should have listened to Rocha or any other person who may have detected a problem.